They started shooting missiles at us. People are dying on the ground, and this is a real thing. The canopy left. I didn't know if he ejected or not. And I said, is he still back there? When you walk in with that attitude, you really get smacked down pretty quick.
Fighter pilots are humble. Is it true that the F-15 Strike Eagle pilots have to wear solar shoes?
You'd have to ask a Strike Eagle pilot that question.
Oh, how did I mess up?
You can ask Hoover that question, actually.
You're not. So there's a difference between F-15 Eagle and an F-15 Strike Eagle?
There is. There's the F-15C model, which most people call it F-15 Eagle. That's what I flew.
Okay, so you're an
Single
Eagle
seat
pilot,
version.
not a Strike Eagle pilot.
Correct. Single seat variant, air to air.
Okay.
The quote-unquote family model is the F-15E that has two seats with a weapons system officer in the back.
Family model. And do you have to have the solar shoes?
It's not required. I'm pretty sure the Air Force doesn't require these for the new F-15X pilots that are on the line either. But I did have
F-35, I know they've got some like high-tech stuff. It's probably an F-35 thing, right?
I wouldn't be surprised, although I'm not clued into that world.
But I'm sure they'd also be charged about $300,000 for each pair.
If the Air Force ordered them, that's absolutely the truth.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so now that we've learned the difference between the F-15 Strike Eagle and the F-15 Eagle, I want to hear the craziest story you've ever had in F-15 Eagle.
Okay. The craziest? I've got several. I'll start with one time I flew a convertible F-15 unintentionally down the Panama City beach and landed at Tyndall.
Well, if you're going to go along the beach, a convertible is probably a good call.
Convertible is, I felt pretty cool in the convertible there. We had lots of good visibility and a lot of wind in the cockpit at that time. So in that case, I was flying a two-seat model F-15D.
The family version.
Family version of the C model, we'll call it.
Okay.
The F-15C had a couple of two-seat models for training, etc. We would take those on TDYs, temporary duty. And I was in Alaska at the time. We took it down to Tyndall Air Force Base, and we had some of our personnel that don't get to normally fly, maintenance personnel, avionics personnel, in the back seat. We would take them for incentive rides.
Right.
We were on incentive flight, and the canopy came off in flight at the second G turn that we did, about 7.5 Gs or so for a second G maneuver.
Nice incentive.
And the guy, the individual in the back, got a nice big rush of air in the back. The canopy left. I didn't know if he ejected or not. So I had the mirrors until the canopy left. The mirrors were gone. So my wingman at the time was out there, and he basically said, I basically knocked it off and rocked him in. And I said, is he still back there? He's like, yeah, he's still back there. I'm like, okay, you got the lead. Let's go back home. And then I actually heard my back seater with his head down like this in the back, keep the wind out of his face, saying, I'm okay back here. So we made it back to Tyndall just fine, landed, no problem. But that was a pretty crazy day.
What happened? Why did the canopy decide to depart the airframe?
Oh, great question. The investigative individuals, they did a safety investigation on it. And because we have pressurization going through 8,000, which is normally where the pressurization begins to be less than the altitude you're indicated at, it was determined that somehow the individual in the back got the handle and popped it to the left position. And if you think about it, the F-15 gear handle's on the right-hand side in the front and the back cockpit, and it's easy for someone to kind of mistakenly try to grab a hold of something as I'm rolling the airplane, and as I pull G's, their hand can come down, and it could have popped the canopy. That was the only thing that was considered that could have happened at the time. Given an accident, nobody was really in trouble for anything. It was just it happened, and we learned from it.
Okay, so it wasn't too scary or anything.
It actually wasn't.
No.
It was actually very startling. The good thing is the F-15's got a little, kind of like a motorcycle screen in the front. So the air rush was above my head, but flowed into the cockpit. So the individual back lost his visor, and I think he had a camera in the back that got sucked out as well. So.
You hear so many great things about the F-15, undefeated in combat.
Yes, 104-0.
Yes, every F-15 pilot knows that number. I talked to an F-15 pilot. You know him, I'm pretty sure. He told a story about doing some war game maneuvering, and they did this huge drop, and they were coming in just perfect and everything else when his wingman yelled, knock it off, and he was really upset.
Okay.
To find out that a section of his wing had decided to depart the plane.
Yes.
And so he went in and landed, but it wasn't a big deal.
You spoke to that guy that flew with, I've seen the photos of that. It's pretty impressive.
Richard McSpadden.
Oh, I do know Richard McSpadden.
You
Rest his soul. Yeah.
So that was Spad's story.
Great man. Also,
Great
tragic
man.
story for him as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Scariest moment in the F-15.
Scariest moment with the F-15. Well, scary, high adrenaline. Those type things kind of go hand in hand, I think. You're always prepared for something. So
Okay.
you play the mental games as a fighter pilot to always kind of, if it happens, it happens. But you always try to prevent it from happening, whatever it may be. You strike by missile, airplane coming apart for some reason, other reason. So scariest thing would be probably I was in the Kosovo conflict back in '99.
Okay.
And they started shooting missiles at us on day 3 of the
this is
war.
just like
and that
the
was kind of
movie
interesting.
Behind Enemy Lines.
It wasn't quite that bad, but yes, it was. Yes, they started shooting missiles at us. The first couple nights, we shot down four MiGs on the first 3 days of the war. I was witness actually to the first MiG shot down there by Rico
Wow.
Rodriguez, who's got 3 MiG kills, actually. Not Tom Cruise, but Rico's got 3 MiG kills.
Yeah.
And
Not quite an ace, but still a lot to brag about
right,
at that point.
the legend Rico. He's great. And I was in his force ship and actually witnessed his missile come off the rail, witnessed the fireball. I was locked to the fireball at the time, so I was engaged with in the same engagement. I did not shoot it down, but I was engaged in the same engagement with Rico, and his 3rd MiG kill. His first 2 MiG kills were in Desert Storm, and he got 1 in Kosovo back on March 24th of '99.
Okay.
So that night was interesting because I'd never seen combat at the time.
Okay.
And so we took off, flew on the Adriatic Sea, and then went down through Albania up into Kosovo area, and we're fighting the Serbians. And I was actually the first force ship to cross the line into hostile Serbia.
Oh, wow.
Our force ship was, and we actually was privileged to escort the strike package in the south that night, which was led by Lieutenant Colonel Goldfein at the time. That became Chief of Staff, just recently retired as Chief of Staff of the Air Force, 4-star General
Wow.
Goldfein. Another great man, legend, and in the Air Force, and very great leader. So was fortunate to be able to be airborne that night with a lot of great people, and there were just a couple of them. But night 3 of the war was when they started shooting the surface-to-air missiles, and that was the first time I'd ever seen a surface-to-air missile, telephone pole-sized missile, shot up, and is sometimes toward my direction, and also seeing the radar warning receiver, RWR, go off, and it could be potentially coming towards me. Now, I never had a coupled RWR and missile at the same time. I had them individually, RWR with no missile or missiles with no RWR, but some of my buddies had them both and saw missiles fly by their airplane and are lucky to be here today. So that was a very interesting, high energetic, high adrenaline time in my career.
Do you recall how you felt that first time going into combat?
Wow, great. So we were flying straight down the south on the Adriatic Sea, so we could hit the tanker, get some gas, fill up before we crossed the line. And I remember as we went down there, we knew that T-LAMs were being shot from the boat, and we knew that H hour was at 1900 local time. So 7 p.m. local time was H hour, and we weren't quite crossing the line yet. Those guys were preparing the battle space, if you will, with T-LAMs. And
T-LAMs.
T-LAMs. You'd have to ask what T-LAM stands for. You can Google it. I apologize. It's missiles that are shot from the boat that go up. Terrain launched air missiles.
Okay.
Terrain T-LAM. I may have got that wrong, so forgive me for that. So T-LAMs are off the boats, and they hit the targets to kind of soften the targets for us to come in and actually do bomb strikes on targets with our strike package. And going on the Adriatic Sea, the sun had just set. It was March. The sun is just below the horizon. It was still a little bit of a glow on the horizon from the sun going down. And I remember seeing the red glows right at HL, right at 7 p.m., glows on the horizon. And that was my first sense of, okay, this is real. People are dying on the ground, and this is a real thing. And so in that moment, you actually get so focused that your training is really what you rely on. And time actually, I thought, slowed down a bit, such that everything was happening slow, and my processing power went up. It was interesting, and those that have been there hopefully can relate. But I felt that everything that happened those first few nights are really ingrained deeply in the memory, probably because of all the emotional responses involved in being somewhere that you're not used to being, and the threat of death is always there too, for a variety of reasons. So it just became really real, and the feeling was reality, that this is real. People are dying.
Wow. Talking to you guys in the Air Force, I got a chance to hang with you and some others recently. I'm amazed at the training that you guys have had. It seems like there's nothing better in aviation than U.S. Air Force training. I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke or anything, but what is the training like in the U.S. Air Force?
It's intensive, it's compact, it's high speed, and being as condensed as it is, it's testing. It's testing of your abilities to be able to finish. And so it's the fear of failing that probably charges most pilots to do well and actually finish in pilot training. So I'm a flight instructor now at PRP Aviation. I'm the chief pilot there, and we're a Cirrus training center in Ocala, Florida. So I train new students all the time. The younger students always pick up things quicker. We have older 40s and 50s, 60s students as well, and they don't pick up things as quickly, so that's just reality. But looking back at what I did in 1 year and 1 month of pilot training at Shepherd Air Force Base and Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training, looking back, I was amazed at how much we crammed in that 1 year of training. It was amazing of the formation, all the instruments in a slower T-37 and then a faster T-38. I'm learning instruments as a 200-hour pilot at 300 knots. And
wow.
So processing all that very quickly was challenging, but I mean, obviously rewarding because I loved it every minute of it. And I was motivated by the fact that I wanted to finish well and get the fighter that I wanted, which was the F-15.
Fighter pilots have a reputation for being, your type A, ego-driven, kick butt kind of person. Yet I got to witness you guys even doing a debrief. It was like there were no egos. When you guys look at yourself, your critical after action, whatever, I'm amazed by how you guys take emotion out of it. Tell me about that and why.
So those that retain egos in the Air Force don't last very long.
Okay, so that whole fighter pilot ego thing doesn't last.
It's a stigma. The
It's a
real
stigma,
fighter
okay.
pilots of the world who last to be fighter pilots for long term are probably some of the most humble guys
Okay.
with great humility that want to better themselves, and it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong if you're learning from it, make yourself better. Because really what you're doing, you learn this early in a fighter squadron as well. So I did well in pilot training. I chose the F-15 as one of the top couple in my class, and did well in fighter lead-in training, which is flying the T-38, learning how to fight with it, did well there. And so we all, as fighter pilots, have pretty good accolades or you wouldn't be a fighter pilot. And so once you get to your fighter squadron, you kind of are on your high horse because you've just come through a rigorous course. You're in your early 20s. You've got all the emotions and hormones that young 20-year-olds have, and you're processing all the stuff you just did, and you're pretty proud of yourself, right? And you have a right to be because it's a grueling experience. And when you get to your fighter squadron, you learn pretty quick that everybody was distinguished graduate in the class.
Right.
Everybody had accolades on their record. So when you walk in with that attitude, you really get smacked down pretty quick. And I know all fighter communities are like this. The F-15 C model community specifically, we eat our young. The Eagles eat their eggs, eat their
Right.
young. You physically, you have to eat eggs sometimes to be able to learn. But so you get beaten down by the elders of the group to realize, hey, look, what we're really out there to do is save each other's life. And when I'm checking his 6, he's checking my 6, and we're fighting a bandit, we got to be precise and spot on, or we can lose lives. And that's really what it's about. And you lose that ego. Real fighter pilots lose that ego pretty quick. You don't lose your confidence. There's a difference. You don't lose your confidence, but you do it in a humility, a humble type way that you can learn from it. And that welcomes honoring mistake, not honoring. It welcomes fessing up to mistakes in the debrief. And that's why we're always first to criticize ourselves first in
Right.
front of everybody, and then we ask, okay, what else did you guys see that I did wrong so we can make it better next time? That's the real attitude of true fighter pilots, and I see that today in the Red Star Pilots Association when we fly our Nanchangs around, our CH-6 Nanchangs, that we have a good group of guys that understand that, and we're all humble and want to learn more.
I think that's one of the biggest untold stories ever, is
Maybe.
that fighter pilots are humble. All right,
So, I don't
that
know.
is definitely the untold story. Wow, okay,
So our CJ6 Squadron in Ocala, we actually called the Humble Squadron.
nice.
Humble Squadron, because the guy that really kind of founded that, Rich Langer, sadly he's passed away, great American, great man that passed away. I actually now own his Nanchang.
Right.
And so I treat it very well.
I've
with
gotten a
reverence.
ride in that Nanchang.
You did. I treat it with reverence because Rich was a great man in our neighborhood, and we all miss him. But he had the most humble spirit. But he was one of the best formation pilots that anybody had seen. He was just that good. And
Was he a
super
fighter
humble about
pilot?
it. He was. He flew
Okay.
F-4s in Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
Decorated war hero.
Which, by the way, F4 pilots I've talked to swear that that's the best fighter ever.
Of course. Yeah, of course. It's great.
But
I'd love
no
to fly it.
F-14 Tomcat pilots have ever said that's the best.
Okay. All right.
So
I thought
it's not that they just say that about every plane that they fly.
Sure.
So, but yeah. Well, Anthony, real quick, you talk about how training, you talk about humility. You're running this PRP Aviation out of Florida. You guys focus on Cirrus. What kind of training are you doing there?
So we do training all the way up from private pilot through commercial pilot. We don't really have a twin engine airplanes. Really don't do
Right.
ATPs, but private through commercial is really what we're based on. We're a Cirrus training center. We have SR-20s, SR-22s. We do have a couple of 172s as well. We do basic training in for those that can't afford the Cirrus.
Right.
Because when my son, I can't afford the Cirrus right now either in training, so it's
Right.
pretty expensive. But it's the safest airplane out there for family-oriented people that want to take their family safely somewhere. The Cirrus is the best airplane. So we've tied with Cirrus. We're a Cirrus Platinum Training Center. We're a fully authorized service center as well. We have Garmin avionics as well, and we also have in the training center. I just took a test for Part 141 certification.
Oh, nice.
So soon we'll hopefully be a provisional 141 school as well, and we train pilots. We try to do that from a military framework, which
Sure, the best
clients,
training in the world.
the clients love it.
Okay.
They love the long briefings and the detailed debriefings that we do in the military all the time. We don't just show up the airplane and go fly and come back and that's it. See you next student. Let's go. We're
Right.
not a pilot mill at all. We're there if you want to learn the right way to fly, and you have time to do it, the finances to do it, and we'll teach you the way to do it that we learned from the best training on the planet, we think, and we do that type of squadron mentality with our instructors and with Chris Prusak.
Well, I've been able to witness you guys do a debrief, and the level and commitment that you guys have to improving is obvious, and it's inspiring for me, and knowing that I need to always continue to look to be better and do better. So, Anthony, thank you so much
Dan, thanks for having
joining
me.
me today. And thank you guys for watching. Don't forget our sponsors. We're here at the Flying Eyes booth at Sun and Fun. If you go to flyingeyesoptics.com, you can use our discount code, taking off all caps one word, for 10% off. Also, 67 Design, 67D.com, ClemensInsurance.net, MPSProtects.com, Personal Protection Elevated, and XCVision.com. I'll have a link to Anthony's PRP Aviation if you want to check that out in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.